Good evening, good afternoon to some, I think good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Wiebke Schlömer. I'm the Director for Europe and Central Asia of the International Finance Corporation, AIFC, a member of the World Bank Group. And it's my great honor and pleasure to be here today and moderate this session about the importance of gender equality for economic development and growth. This is an issue that's even more important given the devastating economic and social consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it is also an issue that's very close to my heart. So I am really delighted that we can focus on this topic and to have a group of esteemed panelists with us to hear their first-hand experiences as to how the public and private sector can provide innovative solutions to enhance women's economic participation. We need to think about how we can design policies and support innovative business models that make sense for businesses and for women empowerment. Closing the gender gap will take time, patience, and commitment from the very top, but it can be done. And I'm very excited to hear our panelists' ideas of how we can get there. I am truly inspired and delighted about partnering with such dynamic and renowned female leaders in today's panel. And I will introduce them as I invite them to speak. And with this, let me first welcome Ms. Anar Omaroba, who's the Senior Advisor to the Governor of the Astana International Financial Center, to open the forum. Ms. Omaroba, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Dear ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests and participants of this forum, it's a great honor for me to address the first session of the Women's Economic Empowerment Forum and share progress of our work on establishment of the Closing the Gender Gap Accelerator in Kazakhstan. In fulfilling its mission, the Astana International Financial Center believes that investing in women economic empowerment and unleashing the economic potential of women is key to ensuring sustainable growth. We are committed to supporting the efforts of the government of Kazakhstan in advancing women's economic rights and opportunities. Within the AIFC, we are making progress with the launch of our own initiative, which is called Women's Economic Empowerment, Education and Entrepreneurship. As announced by the Governor Kairat Kelimbetov, the initiative will focus on expanding the educational and investment opportunities for women in business in Kazakhstan. And today, AIFC has all necessary infrastructure and instruments to help improve access to finance for women in business. In March 2021, jointly with the Embassy of Kazakhstan in the United States of America, we held a round table discussing women's economic empowerment and investments into women's business. Many high-level representatives participated from the US government, from the government of Kazakhstan, development agencies, and international financial institutions. Women's Economic Empowerment Forum was born out of our shared vision, understanding, and commitment of the Astana International Financial Center to achieve gender equality. The forum aims to become the platform for women not only in Kazakhstan, but in the whole Central Asia and even beyond, for exchanging ideas, experiences, learning from each other, and facilitating actions to ensure equal opportunities. In June, Astana International Financial Center signed a letter of intent with the World Economic Forum, laying the ground for closing the gender gap accelerator in Kazakhstan, the first country in Central Asia to do so. AIFC has joined the accelerator as a local coordinator responsible for facilitation of the collaboration between the public and private sectors to take proactive action to advance women's economic empowerment. Going forward, we will work with quasi-public institutions, with private sector companies, to prepare in-depth local assessment of gender equality issues that will ultimately result in action plan with key targets regarding women economic empowerment in different fields and at all levels. We are happy to participate in this event today, and we are happy that World Economic Forum has joined us today as well with this great global initiative. AIFC is already working with the World Economic Forum on establishing the first Fourth Industrial Revolution affiliated center in Central Asia. The announcement of opening the center will be tomorrow at 1 p.m. The idea of this center is to strengthen Kazakhstan's commitment to innovation and introduction of new technologies. We will continue to work with the World Economic Forum and all our partners to build long-standing relationships across the entire spectrum of AIFC activities. Basically, we are looking forward to exchange ideas, knowledge, and hope that our discussion today will mark the beginning of the nationwide mutual effort to advance women's economic rights and opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thank you for these welcoming remarks. Let me turn to our next speaker, Ms. Sadia Sahidi, who is Managing Director and the head of the Center for the New Economy and Society at the World Economic Forum. Ms. Sahidi, as the COVID-19 widened the gender gap, could you share with us some insights on the history of the Accelerator program? Over to you.
Thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you and to join this very illustrious panel of long-standing friends and a new partnership as well. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the team under the leadership of Chairwoman Ramazanova, Chairman Kelimbetov, Minister Irgaliev, and Mr. Risma Gambetov. Thank you so much for your partnership and for this very timely initiative in setting up the Closing the Gender Gap Accelerator in Kazakhstan. I think it's very common knowledge at this stage that COVID-19 has been hugely disruptive to economies and societies, but along gender fault lines, things have certainly become worse when it comes to women's economic and social standing. In fact, our last Global Gender Gap report released in March of this year showed that the time to close gender gap, which was already very long, it would have taken 99 years when we did this exercise the year before. It is now going to take 135 years if we continue at the current rate of progress. So the rate of progress has slowed down, and that is exactly why initiatives such as the Accelerator are so important. And the pandemic made things worse for multiple reasons. One, because we have accelerated a lot of digitization, which is very important and good for the economy as a whole, but tends to have a smaller pipeline of women who go into computer science, IT, and STEM-related fields. And the second reason is that the burden of caregiving has ended up falling largely on women. And in fact, there's even a third reason, which is the sectors that have been most disrupted by the pandemic in most parts of the world tend to be the ones that have given fairly good middle-class livelihoods to women in the last few years. And so these are the issues that the Accelerator model is trying to address over the coming years. And specifically, we aim to set up public-private collaboration that addresses 4 topics. One, broad improvement in women's labor force participation across the economy, and there are many ways to get to that, both from the public and the private sector. Second, closing gender gaps in salaries between and within sectors. Third, advancing more women into leadership and management positions. And fourth, and perhaps most importantly and more strategically at this stage, hardwiring gender equality into the post-pandemic world of work. So taking efforts today, now, so that more women are integrated into the rising sectors and jobs of tomorrow. That's what the Accelerator seeks to do. We started out some years ago, first in the Latin America region, working closely with partners at the Inter-American Development Bank, and in Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic, and Panama. We then expanded to a close collaboration with Egypt, which became the first country in the Middle East and North Africa region, and absolutely delighted that Minister Al-Mashat has joined us here today and has been such a pioneer of this model, which then helped us take this to another country in the region, to Jordan. And now I'm delighted that we're able to bring this model to this close partnership with Kazakhstan, which becomes the first country in the region to take this opportunity forward. Together, all these countries, as well as several others that are leaders in this space, come together in a global learning network for closing the gender gap and access the full power of the World Economic Forum platform to be able to communicate how success looks like, what are the learnings from the various experimentations, and to come together to inspire others to take action as well. We've seen some very tangible examples of progress in countries that started out several years ago. There are going to be, I'm sure, excellent examples that Minister Al-Mashat will share with us as to the progress made, and we've certainly been able to record a lot of that over the course of the last years from countries in Latin America, which were amongst the first to execute this model. Kazakhstan is very well positioned to start with because of a relatively high level of health and education and also economic participation of women, but there's obviously more to be done, especially as the economy goes through a digital transformation. As Ms. Omarova mentioned, there will be also the work around the fourth industrial revolution. As these changes take place, it's important that we take the time to embed equality today so that the future world of work is much more gender equal than it is today. And that is very much the purpose around the Accelerator. To close, simply thank you for the partnership, and we very much look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Ms. Zahidi. Very interesting to hear the background, and definitely two numbers that will stay with me is first, the 99 years to close the gap were not too encouraging, but now hearing it is 135, I think just speaks for itself. With this, it is even greater news that Kazakhstan is also joining the Accelerator program, as was announced by the chairperson of the Commission on Women's Affairs, Family and Demographic Policy, Ms. Lazat Ramazanova, a few weeks ago. And Ms. Ramazanova, I'm delighted you are joining us today. Could you share with us a bit about the challenges you see in Kazakhstan as you are working towards closing the gender gap and how these challenges can be addressed? Over to you, please.
Добрый день, я благодарю вас, Випке, за предоставленное слово. Я хотела бы на данной сессии, которая посвящена обсуждению глобальной инициативы, нацеленной на сокращение гендерного равенства во всем мире, заострить внимание на тех вопросах, которые сегодня имеет не только Казахстан, наверное, сегодня имеет практически все мировое сообщество. Это нулевая точка отсчета. Многие страны сделали несколько шагов назад в вопросах достижения гендерного равенства. И многие бизнес-процессы, которые шли и в нашей стране, они тоже немного остановились. Конечно же, если мы возьмем опыт, скажем так, негативный опыт, который Казахстан приобрел во время пандемии, это большее количество женщин-предпринимателей, практически 67% практически не знали о мерах государственной поддержки, которые в стране есть. Это говорит о том, что женщина привыкла двигаться сама, надеяться только на себя. Когда я говорю малый и средний бизнес, я имею в виду 43% всего предпринимательского сообщества этого сектора представляют женщины. Вместе с тем, я уже являясь общественным представителем, вижу, какие деятельные действия делает правительство Казахстана по балансированию этого вопроса. Я бы хотела отметить в первую очередь инициативу главы государства об открытии во всех регионах 17 ресурсных центров по поддержке женщин. Это те самые ресурсные центры, которые будут аккумулировать бизнес-инициативы, которые будут помогать, в том числе совместно уже с программой бизнес-акселератора, наверное, достигать новых возможностей и расширять имеющиеся, и расширять бизнес-контакты женщин-предпринимателей. Сегодня, несмотря на то, что статистически женщин в Казахстане больше, чем мужчин, я, наверное, скажу, гендерная доступность и гендерное равенство, оно еще не имеет такую безапелляционную силу. Сегодня мы имеем так называемый стеклянный потолок, когда женщина, которая ставит определенные цели профессионального роста, она все-таки сталкивается с существующими барьерами. Я хочу сказать, что глава государства с первых дней, с первых своих заявлений акцентировал внимание на расширении и возможности женщин и продвижения. И в этой связи отмечу конституционные изменения, которые произошли. Это внедрение 30% квоты в 2 закона, благодаря которым у нас сегодня нижняя палата парламента сформирована. И при формировании списков политических партий были внесены законодательные поправки о включении квоты, специальной квоты 30% для женщин и молодежи. Если это не так сильно сказалось на формировании Нижней палаты парламента Казахстана, сегодня там 27% женщин, то очень хорошо изменилась у нас картина в регионах. Если мы возьмем областные маслихаты, городские маслихаты, районные маслихаты, то у нас картина категорически изменилась. От где-то 3% сейчас представленность в областных, городских, районных, представленность женщин у нас достигает до 32%. То есть это очень сильный рывок, и поправки в закон были своевременными. Большой вопрос сегодня вы затронули, вот спикер до меня, вопрос расширения возможностей, представленности женщин и участия ее в корпоративном секторе. Если мы возьмем в целом картину, экономическую картину Казахстана, вообще составляющую, то 70% экономики – это квазигосударственный сектор. Да, с точки зрения экономики, может быть, это не очень эффективный подход, когда государство присутствует в тех секторах, где должен быть бизнес. Но вместе с тем это очень очень удобная возможность внедрить именно в этом секторе 30% квоту представленности женщин на уровне принятия решений. Сегодня, по оценке международных экспертов, женщин в советах директоров корпоративного сектора составляет только 7,4%. Глава государства поставил четкую задачу перед правительством повысить уровень представленности женщин в советах директоров корпоративного сектора, квазигосударственных организаций до 30%. Мне всегда интересно слышать, когда спикеры говорят о цифровизации, пользовании, расширении именно этой платформы. Но Центральная Азия и возможности женщин имеют свою специфику. Было бы прекрасно, если бы бизнес-акселератор все-таки помог внедрить нам ту методологию, которая позволит нам с цифровизацией зайти не в центральные города Казахстана, а донести именно эту платформу в сельские населенные пункты. Учитывая нашу территориальную особенность, геополитическое расположение и вектор, поставленный на диверсификацию, такая страна, углеродоемкая страна, как Казахстан, будет двигаться в сторону диверсификации, зеленой экономики. Для многих моих соотечественниц это звучит как что-то космическое, нереальное. Но это реалии дня. И во время коронавируса многие из нас ощутили это, необходимость серьезных действий со стороны не только правительства Казахстана, но и самого гражданского общества по переходу к зеленой экономике. Очень большое выступление, уважаемые коллеги, мне приготовили. Собрали массу информации, но я, наверное, базово остановлюсь на работе, предстоящей работе в рамках акселератора. Мы первая страна в Центральной Азии, было правильно сказано, которая присоединилась, и мы бы хотели для всей Центральной Азии показать положительный опыт. Мне, как председателю Национальной комиссии, очень сложно понять сейчас формат нашего будущего сотрудничества. Я очень надеюсь, что 3 партнера Казахстана, которые включены в этот процесс, это Международный финансовый центр Астана, Министерство национальной экономики Казахстана и Агентство стратегического развития совместно с ВЭФ все-таки разработают более такую расширенную фокус-группу не только по изучению ситуации текущей. Текущая ситуация нами уже в принципе разложена. Мы бы хотели четкий алгоритм дальнейших действий. Я обозначила квазигосударственный сектор, куда мы намерены двигаться. Я еще обозначу точку в связи с цифровизацией. Мы говорим о STEM. Система STEM недоступна для женщин не только в Казахстане. По миру, по-моему, только 29% женщин, девушек работают или двигаются в направлении STEM. Сфера IT по всему миру всего лишь 0,2% женщин там. У нас сконцентрировано мнение, что IT-отрасль это только маскулинум. Этот тренд необходимо менять. Этот тренд необходимо менять не только на таких площадках. Я думаю, больше вовлекать сюда реальный сектор экономики, которые могли бы на своем примере уже этот гендерный перелом сделать. Я просто расскажу пример. В нашу компанию, одну из наших компаний, набирали IT-сотрудников. Пришли 5 претендентов. Одна из них была девушка. И что вы думаете? Все, кто принимали решения, в том числе 2 женщины, проголосовали за мужчин. Гендерные стереотипы сидят у нас в IT-отрасли и в STEM-отрасли очень глубоко. А если мы возьмем особенность Казахстана и все-таки тот кластер математический, физический и физико-математический, то большинство выпускниц именно этих факультетов, как физика, математика, у нас очень быстро рекрутируется в IT-компании, инженерные компании. Но, к сожалению, дальнейшего роста этих девушек мы не видим. Они остаются на уровне исполнителей. На уровень истеблишмента очень тяжело проходят туда наши девушки. Все, это были вместе с выступлением такие вопросы, которые я очень надеюсь, что мы вместе с вами найдем решение на них. Я надеюсь, что достижение гендерного равенства и расширение возможностей женщин полностью соответствует целям акселератора. Призываю не только государственный сектор, но и частный сектор более активно подключаться к вопросам продвижения женщин, расширения их экономических возможностей благодаря акселератору. Спасибо.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ramazanova. Very interesting and inspiring background also. But with this, we're honored to have Dr. Rania Al-Mashat with us, the Minister of International Cooperation of the Arab Republic of Egypt, and to share her insights about the impact that closing the gender gap has across the globe, and of course, particularly in Egypt. Dear Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Wibeke, and thank you for inviting me, AFS, to this seminar. And let me first start by 3 words that you laid out at the beginning. You said time, patience, and commitment when it comes to trying to push the gender agenda. And as you know, my colleagues, Ms. Ramazova and Madame Anar mentioned, that when there is political will to push this agenda forward, it is for other policymakers within the political sphere to try and capitalize on that. And here, let me acknowledge the World Economic Forum and, of course, Ms. Sadia, who has been pushing this agenda very much, and not just pushing it in terms of theory, but actually operationalizing it. And this is, again, some of the previous speaker was saying, give us a way where we can actually operationalize, practically give digital skills to women, practically make sure that the private sector is engaged. And this is what's very different when it comes to the closing the gender gap accelerator. And let me maybe say a few words on it in Egypt and then put it in the context of COVID. The closing the gender gap accelerator is a public-private platform. So it's not just the public sector that comes in and puts an action plan to push the gender agenda, but we do it collectively with the private sector. So here we have been able to close a gap of understanding or information even. There's a dialogue that exists between government and private sector for the gender agenda. And the gender agenda is not a luxury anymore. It's been quantified that when, for example, if we have gender parity in Egypt, then GDP goes up by 34%. That's a big number. And that's a big number that has implications on both men and women, not just on women. So quantification was extremely important, creating that shared platform for the private sector to come in and say, this is what I am able to do. And let me also acknowledge IFIs such as AIFC, World Bank, EBRD. The international community has different initiatives that provide guidance to the private sector on how to push gender agenda, whether it's through financing, technical assistance, even trying to put rules and regulations around the modalities of how businesses work. So here comes the concept of all stakeholders together trying to push this agenda forward: government, private sector, international community. And the closing the gender gap accelerator provides this blueprint, points, a structure by which we can move forward. In our case, we signed with the World Economic Forum. We have the National Council for Women as our local coordinator. We already now have an action plan with very detailed items for the private sector and for the government, and we're trying to push ahead to implement. Egypt is the first country, as Sadia mentioned, in the Middle East and North Africa, and we're very happy that other countries in the region have seen the positive momentum and want to follow suit as well. And here comes the idea of learning, peer experience, having very important forums where we discuss, but not just mention our goals, but actually how the results of what we put together. In our case, today, during the pandemic, Egypt was one of the first countries to have a policy tracker where the different policies during COVID that were taken by the government or by the private sector are always updated on a monthly basis on a website, so people can see the gender-sensitive policies that have been undertaken. The concept of digitalization, STEM, how can we involve women in these practices? I agree with the previous speaker, and here comes the idea of showing successes, shedding light on models. What we are going to be doing in our accelerator is having peer-to-peer exchange with the private sector, so that private sector is encouraged to basically feel a little bit jealous of each other and try and push forward when it comes to some of the good companies that are doing this practice and actually either training the women or trying to look to finance women in other areas. I can go on for long. In our case, we have now 25% of women of the cabinet are female ministers, my colleagues. We have more than 27% in parliament today. For the first time in Egypt's history, starting October, we will have judges who are female. So this was revolutionary, and there was a lot of legislative change that is taking place. So all of these are very important pointers to bring forward. But let's not forget that there are, I don't want to say different types of women, but women at different levels of development. So you have those who are in the corporates, those who are in the government, but you also have those who are in the rural areas, those who you want to encourage to put their girls in schools, those who you want to make sure they get the microfinance. So as we are putting a gender agenda, we are not trying to sound elitist or very exclusive, but the programs are actually going all the way down. And this is something which is extremely important. It is through us, which have access and exposure to talk to the international community and collate support, but it is support across the board, not just to a stratified, and I don't mean to be a sort of compartment, splitting up the agenda, but it is important to say that in each and every level of development, you are trying to push forward the opportunities and help girls and women understand how important there are opportunities that exist and how they can capture it and actually push the whole agenda forward. Thank you very much for this, and I enjoyed participating. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Al-Mashat. Very inspiring what you've outlined. I have taken some notes, and it includes, you mentioned the importance that all stakeholders work together. Of course, we also keep hearing of the importance of digitalization. So just a few key areas we'll take away. I notice we are a bit short of time. I would like to ask two quick questions, Minister Al-Mashat, to you and to Ms. Zahidi, and then turn back to Ms. Omarova for an award ceremony. And Minister Al-Mashat, if I could ask you first, perhaps follow up on what you just said. If you could highlight just in short, really the key areas or elements you see that we all need to focus on to strengthen women economic empowerment.
I think one very important point is to always hammer on the quantification, because it is not just a lip service that this is a vulnerable group that you're trying to push. No, this is an economic force. And as we are talking about a recovery, as we are talking about countries trying to move out of a downfall, it is when everyone in the country is involved. So I think that is one very important takeaway. The second important takeaway is nobody can do this on their own. The government can put as many policies as it wants, but if the private sector does not endorse, if the culture is not ready, then we cannot move forward. So this idea of engagement is not, again, just a very nice title. We operationalize it, we practice it, and I think that giving examples, country examples that operationalize how you do this is extremely important. And that's where the World Economic Forum is, to basically showcase successful country cases, splitting it up into bits and pieces, so that any country, whether it's on the policy-making level or the private sector level, can take this agenda and implement. So we're beyond the big headlines and into the implementation itself. So those, I think, would be the two very quick takeaways that I would like to bring forward.
Thank you very much. Very clear. And I think to the point, as you say, it's also about operationalizing, about implementing. And numbers speak for themselves. Ms. Zahidi, if I could briefly turn to you, and where you sit with the World Economic Forum, you see also global trends. And are there, just in short, any emerging global trends, so to say, in the post-pandemic world that you are seeing that can also help close the gender gap?
Sure, thank you very much. Thank you for the question. I think one key trend that we have seen for some time to come is around automation and the fourth industrial revolution. All of the technologies that I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago we would have talked about as belonging to the future, it's very much arrived now. Those technologies are being integrated today. Everything from big data usage all the way through to cloud computing. We even found that 25% of the companies that we surveyed said that they're now looking at quantum computing and actually applying that. So you're starting to see a lot of changes that we were only predicting in the past that actually have been integrated now. That is going to have major repercussions for the gender gap. And I think we know that already based on the conversation that we've had here, based on how the Accelerator program is being set up. But it's specific care today that engages the private sector to ensure that they are integrating more women into their pipelines is important, but so is the education sector, as we heard from the previous speakers. So building today much more upstream in the process, that pipeline for the future, getting more girls into science education, getting more girls into IT education, ensuring that all of that is applied, that's a critical component. The second big trend is around a much greater recognition of the importance of the care economy. I think we all saw who were the essential workers of this pandemic. It was the healthcare workers, it was the elder care workers, it was the nurses, the doctors. We all realized the importance of teachers. And these all happen to be professions that actually engage a lot of women. And so there is a stronger recognition now of how important is the work of some of these essential workers. And we must now compensate and ensure that there are higher wages, better professionalization in these sectors. So there is also this relatively positive trend that is starting to emerge through the recognition of the care, education, and health sectors.
Very good. Thank you very much. And you mentioned the fourth industrial revolution. There, I would just like to highlight that tomorrow there will be a session dedicated to the official launch of the Affiliate Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution World Economic Forum in Kazakhstan. So just to mention this sneak preview for tomorrow. And with this, let me pass the floor to Ms. Omarova for an award ceremony before I will close this session.
Thank you very much. Today, I'm delighted to present the World Economic Forum with a special award given the work and impact that closing the gender gap accelerator have had across many countries. This award was established in December 2020 in commemoration of Lady Barbara Judge to recognize exceptional leadership of professionals who can demonstrate growth and lead to better outcomes in their fields.
If I may simply thank you so much on behalf of the World Economic Forum, a very sincere thanks on receiving this special award. As you've heard, embedding gender parity across workplaces, educational systems, households, it's a critical imperative for all of our economies. It's, yes, very much a social issue and a moral issue, but it is also very much an economic and a business issue, and absolutely critical if we're going to create the right kind of innovation and creativity that is required for the world economy to recover and to become a more equitable place and to become a more sustainable place. So while tackling these issues is a complex challenge, it is through collaboration of the type that we're seeing here with this accelerator that is going to drive things forward. So
We could continue. Very inspiring contributions, and my sincere and heartfelt thanks to our esteemed panelists, very inspiring women leaders that I think have given us a good sense of what can be done, how we can make progress, but also that there is more to be done. But we know that we can do it, as we said, with commitment, a bit of patience, but we can do it. With this, really, thank you very much. And the next session will start shortly, and it will be dedicated to women in finance. So another key theme that will help close the gender gap. Thank you so much to everyone.
Thank you.